talking about Jack Elliott.
What was I saying about
So you're talking about Jack was bitter. He wanted to play in Carnegie Hall.
And he's talking behind my back, and he's saying, you know, the way I told you that Ed McCurdy talked behind my back, that I only paid him $50, but he worked the Cafe Was FC for $6 a night for $5.
Right.
Because there you could possibly make it, but in Izzy Young's place, you're just the folky with the 50 people that really love what you're doing, and the 50 people that want to touch you, and the 50 people that know you, and the people that know your songs by heart. In fact, the Sing Out, we'll come back to Jack in a second. In the latest issue of Sing Out, one before he just got now, he has a letter with Faith Patrick writes, Ed McCurdy writes from Canada, please don't write parodies on my songs anymore. Now, Faith doesn't even know what he's referring to. This is referring to the fact that Joan Baez went all around the country singing Last Night I Had the Strangest Dream, but never put it on a record. So he never made any money on this song. So he feels everyone is making money on this song except him, because it never really sold that much. But it's sung in Sweden now. You go to a peace meeting, they sing a Swedish version of that. Not getting any money on that either. So it's interesting that it's one thing writing something that's folk-like that people accept, but at the same time not making a living out of it. So Jack Elliott is complaining that he wants to do a concert in Carnegie Hall, but the guy putting it on should be like Izzy Young. Do you understand it?
No, what do you mean by that? The guy should be like Izzy Young. What do you mean?
Well, the guy putting on a concert at Carnegie Hall is not putting it on for the benefit of the artist.
I see.
He's putting it to make money because he thinks that's going to sell 2,700, 1,700 seats, whatever it is.
Right.
Whereas I'm doing it because I think it's important. So Jack Elliott resented me, even though I was the only one that wrote about him, the only one that talked about him, the only one that always came to his defense. And then I felt he was destroyed, not just when he became a new Christian, whatever that is, that garbage. And Bob Dylan became a new Christian, but never stated openly. And I always resented that people would defend Bob Dylan, Jack Elliott, anybody, Jim Kwesigan, but they wouldn't defend me. I said, listen, I'm entitled to my opinions. So the American people, including the folkies, will say that the person on the stage decides what they want to do. I said, no. They want you to buy the record. So like, Dolly Parton is a classic case which fits into the folk music jungle, in that she was a country singer for many years. Then all of a sudden she says, I'm not a country singer, I'm just a singer. You know, I don't want to be put into a box by you fucking lousy people that have been buying my records for the last 20 years. And in other words, she's thinking of a larger market, you know, an unidentifiable market, which is sort of like Frank Sinatra, which crosses over every line. And then she flops as Frank Sinatra.
Right.
And then what did she do? You know what she did?
No, what did he?
She got Doug Sam to write some songs for her. Now she's a country singer again. So it's again like Tom Paxton, I'm not a folk singer, I never was a folk singer. You know, I'm really proud now of writing country songs. He names like 3 people that he's writing songs for. And he, et cetera, et cetera. Well, okay, where are we now?
Well, we were talking about Elliott. I wanted to talk
Elliott.
a little bit about some of the motivations.
So Elliott is still
of
around.
the people in the early days
I'm not
of
finished
the
with
50s.
Elliott.
Okay.
Elliott then became a Christian, which I think was a dumb mistake. But he was surrounded by some people that were making it in limited areas, like Jim Kwesigan and that group in Boston. And I met some mysterious guy 2 years ago that wanted to interview all my memories about Jeff Moldauer, Maria, from one of these Jim Kwesigan's family type of things. And I thought I was a real machine, and I hit me for 2 hours, and he gave me a big book on religious folders of music, because I was Jack threw out in the garbage family. Anyway, Jack Elliott then proceeded to try to be not an interpreter, which I wrote in that article on Dylan. He tried to write his own songs. He became a singer-songwriter. He flopped at that also. So the problem that I saw in the folk music world was, well, I'm also stating now for the first time, that you couldn't make it anymore as an interpreter. You had to be a singer-songwriter.
Interesting observation.
And that's where Tom Paxton is hit by this and all these other people. And Odetta singing this song in the concert house in Stockholm. I'll rob, I'll steal, I'll climb up the stairs, I'll go the back way, I'll kill people, I'll do anything because I want to make it, you know. And I want to have a house as big as the palace right around the corner from there with 800 rooms that the king doesn't use. It's just an empty house. That nobody could work unaffected by the changes happening in folk music. Okay, who's next?
Dave Van Ronk, another interpreter, mostly.
Dave Van Ronk is still an interpreter. Dave Van Ronk is what I said about myself. I never slid consciously or unconsciously to other modes of existence. He's never done it. Now, you can't explain either why he stuck to his guns. And I saw him last week, and he said, I can see between 12 and 1 because I got 3 students at $25 an hour playing blues. So I said, well, Reverend Gary Davis used to get $5 per whole day, and how much money Stephen Grossman is made out of that. So he has direct contact with students. He has almost an international reputation. People in Sweden know who he is. And he's still an interpreter. He's written some songs of his own. But he's actually not just interpreted a lot of the blues, so he's made his own versions of songs, which are terrific. And the guy now, he was a folk singer, and he was the father of the Folk Singers Guild, as I understood it, which was very active in the village for years. They met every Sunday. And I used to go there quite often. And he was always involved with some anarchist group meetings, and he was involved with the Blacklist Committee, and he was always a hardliner on that to do something. And he's still upset when people call IWW International Workers of the World, Industrial Workers of the World. So every time I find the wrong reference, I send it to him. So he has a little collection of wrong references. In other words, some Trotskyist was thing against anarchists or whatever. So he stuck to his guns. He's still available as he always was. He's still doing all kinds of small jobs in small clubs. And once in a while he gets a $1,500 job or something like that. And now he's put out, so now he has to state consciously, I'm not a folk singer, I'm really a jazz singer. So he's worked with Sam Charters, who's trying to make him into a commercial thing. He's got this company in Connecticut. Gazelle, which I don't think is getting anywhere. But he's trying. And that's Sam Charters from the old folk music world putting on, he was the one to quote the nerve of people calling about rediscovering people. Oh, that's another word, discovery. As if these people didn't live until we Jewish people from New York. In other words, you would find a blues singer, and I have reports that in my scrapbooks full of things like they would go to a barber shop and the singer's around the corner. Suddenly the singer exists now, which he wasn't existing for 60 years. And Pete Siegel now has made amends with his past. All of this new CD that came out now, Joseph Spence, he sent the royalties for the last 6 years or 8 years with him, or the production money to put out the new CD. He sent it to the Joseph Spence family. Though Joseph Spence is dead, so $6,000 in there, down there is a lot of money, even now.
Van Ronk's written of nowadays as a real, father figure, which sounds odd because he was probably 23 years old back in the late 50s, but he's written of as a real catalyst, a real mentor, a real someone who was willing to bring people into the scene. Was that is that myth, or is that something
he would
that
bring
was
everybody
true?
Well, as soon as he heard about the folk assembly, he was an immersion sheik. He just came the first day he was free. He came to my store. He used to hang around the store. He lived there, and then I put on a concert on. I forgot to ask him. I don't know if I use that. I have a stationery now. Of course, Izzy from the desk of Izzy Young. And name all the people who put on the first concerts. I didn't. Well, send that to you.
No, I didn't see it.
I forgot to ask him if he was one of the, because he had the 35th anniversary. I forgot to ask him if he was that 57. It must be. I must have put him on. I hope I put him on his first concert so I can put him on the list. He would bring everyone he knew into the store, and he did several concerts for me. In other words, I didn't distinguish between him and Reverend Gavin Davis, Fred Gerlach, or Peggy Seeger. So he was part of the tradition for me, even though he was younger than all of these people. He was very young when I met him. How old is he now? He's not 60. He's 55. Or
He's in his mid 50s. I think Dave was born in 36.
36. Okay, so
Yeah.
so he was also a classical folk singer for me, and he would come to all the concerts. He came to all the club days, and he supported everybody. And he wrote about people, and he was also part of Caravan magazine, which also started when I started. And then Billy Fair took over for a while. It wasn't very good. Then there was the magazine from Midwest.
Little Sandy.
Little Sandy Review,
Yeah.
which I was the first one that bought it. I bought 50 copies of each. I don't have one individual copy of anything left now. Then my store was the place. I bought 50 copies each of Broadside, which is an incredible number if you think about what Sing-Out is selling now. I don't think there's one store with it. So any new magazine that came out, it would be in my store. Also, I could make a living. 25-cent magazine, which cost me 20 cents plus postage, the whole thing. So he would have all the magazines. He would have the IWW songbook. That would be my store, and I think that was the Dave I got. And he would always let me know about Davis songs and things like that. In the beginning, I was doing mail order. I also had Pete Seeger's banjo instruction manual. Can you imagine putting out a catalog to go to libraries where I put in Pete Seeger's banjo manual? That is revolutionary. I promise to make a copy as soon as I get back.
Okay.
Dick Royce took 200 letters from me when he was in the store once, which I'm glad for now, because otherwise it would have disappeared. So Ron copied them for me. It's in his files. And I have a letter from Toshi or Pete. They were living on that manual. I don't have the first edition anymore, but I have the second and third editions. I think I was selling it for $2, and it cost me $1.20, and I think they paid the postage. And one letter they write to me that I owe them $21.12. Another letter they write they owe me $8.09. Well, the point I'm making is they don't think that way anymore. Instead, but at that time, the $8 meant something, and the $12 or $22 that I owed them meant something. I was pretty good at paying it. Listen, I'd like to bring up one thing now with Kenny Goldstein. I'm sorry you have to jump around.
All right.
Kenny Goldstein and I, in 1955, we started something called the Folklore Press. But I put in the money, all $500, and he put in his name. I made stationery, and we had a phony office. I still see the address, 509 Fifth Avenue, everybody. You pay $6 a month. They took,
Oh, it was a box.
a box number, and they answered your name, Folklore Center.
Right.
Oh, he's not in right now. For $3 you could hire a room to meet somebody if you wanted to at that time. So we had that, and the book we published was Patrick Galvin, Irish Songs of Resistance. And that book is still the best book on the subject. And I published that, and I lost all my money, didn't sell any copies. And, actually, I went to the Simon & Schuster bookshop to sell some copies. And I still remember I come in and say, no, I have to come in on Tuesdays, 9 to 11, whatever it was. So I come back on Tuesday, 9 to 11. And there's 20 other seasoned booksellers, that really know the stuff about selling. And I walk in, a kid, I'm 27 or whatever, 25. And I walk in with this Irish Songs of Resistance. The guy looks at me like, I don't know, shaking him. He's a famous name even. I've seen his name since then. Not even anymore on Fifth Avenue. So he bought 10 copies for me. And I realized much later he was, he could get this weirdo out of here, so he bought 10 copies. And 10 years later, or 15 years later, I went into Simon & Schuster on Fifth Avenue. They still had like 4 copies at a time.
Did you ever see a profit statement from them?
No, they bought 10
Oh,
copies.
oh, they just bought it and that was it. Then they,
That was it.
That was it.
I
Yeah,
never
that was
heard
your
something
okay.
Anyway, the thing is, I was enthusiastic. It was a good book. And then the Workers' Music Association in England, they were selling the book, retail for the price that it cost me. So I felt I was really being hustled by them. They'll say it cost 4 shillings, say it cost me 4 shillings a book. But they were selling it for 4 shillings. So I bought 3,000 copies, 4 shillings, whatever it was a book. And there was no contract, there was no papers, no nothing. And then when Mo Ash and Irwin Silver were working together on book publications, I would trade them my book for their publications because it had a cellar full of them I never sold. So I forgot I would give them $100 worth of Irish Songs Musicians, $90 worth of their books. So in other words, for me it was money I was getting back. And then Mo Ash put out a record, Irish Songs of Resistance, and the filler was the book. And then the book was taken over by Music Sales Publication, when they bought all the publications, and that was the first hustle that Earl Silver did, because he got 2 years' salary, and he said he's beating the system. I said, that's what rich people do, always beating the system. And at some point I was getting some royalties actually, because I thought I was a publisher or whatever, so I was getting $30 a year. And then a few years ago I got a letter from some 12-name lawyers corporation in London. Do you realize you've stolen the royalties living from Patrick Galvin? Here I am, the one guy who never stole anything from anybody. And it's really weird because there's no contract written down or anything. He says, how could you take this book and not pay anyone? I got this letter, I feel like a horrible crook. I was getting and then the same company took over Bob Dylan's song, Talking Folklore Center. Because 3M wanted it to put in their collections, because he wrote the song for me in '62, but they wanted me to get a letter from Bob Dylan to say that it was okay to use it. But Herb Wise, book sales, he put it into about 5 different books. So what happened was, it probably would have been better if I got a letter from Bob Dylan to use the song. And because if 3M put it out, I would have made much more money than I got. So I got some royalties, $12 a year, $15 a year, to use the Talking Folklore Center. And it says, in other words, I bought the song from him from 2 Robert Johnson records that was available then at Columbia. He gave it to me, and there's no contract between us. Now, I didn't even get a penny advance for the song. I told you I got $17 a year or $19 a year. Then they stopped coming because music sales run from London. They put it together with the Galvin book, which is also run by them. So I stopped getting royalties. And so they don't give me the royalties on the Bob Dylan song, $20 a year. But the thing is, it's in 5 or 6 different books. So they could put out books at the time. Young folk this, young folk that. They would have 1 song of everybody or 2 songs, Judy Collins, John Byers, May Pop. Then there would always be Talking Folklore stuff. So Happy Trout, how to play the guitar, how to pick the guitar. So that's put out by book sales. It's got the song Talking Folklore stuff. So even these people, everybody was forced to put in the Bob Dylan song, because that was the only way. Dave Garr has this festival songbook. There's the Talking Folklore Center. Then they put out Bob Dylan in his own words in England. I don't know how many copies it sold. And I'm going to have this Kraslovsky check into that. He said, no, Izzy, you can't do that. If you owe them money on one song, they can't take that off another song. He named some technical crossover term. So I'm involved in slight business irregularities, despite my. But the thing is, there was no contract between me and Bob Dylan. He just gave me the song. I even wrote about it on one of those sheets of paper. That's the only thing he ever gave away. And the reason he gave it away to me, I found out much later, was. Do you have those papers here?
Good.
I write this in my little newsletter, number 2, 1987, 6th of March, 1987. I put the text every once in a while I like to hit the people in Sweden. They think I'm a jerk, and I don't know what I'm doing, especially I'm working with Swedish culture. And every once in a while I give them a jolt up the ass, and I print this song in my newsletter. I said, yes, Bob Dylan actually figured me out almost exactly 25 years ago. I'm reading this now for you because we're talking about the feelings of the time.
Right.
So I'm enjoying the feelings of the time later. Bob never gave anything away except this song. Sure, I put him on at his first real concert. Sure, I opened up the world's first real folklore center. That's all part of the sociology of getting famous in America, which I didn't take advantage of. He saw through me. He understood that I did it because I liked folk music, and I met everyone, and I presented everyone, but yet I would never move from the back of my store, because in the song he writes, they got real records and real books. Anybody can walk in and look. You don't have to own a Cadillac car or a $952 guitar. Do like most people do. Walk in, walk around, walk out. And that's a put down of me in a way, but it's still happening in Sweden. People walk in, walk around, walk out. So I haven't changed in any mode from my original existence. In fact, a friend of mine from Chicago has a distribution office for sports equipment he's getting from his father. So the first thing he did when he got his place, he got an executive chair, one of these things that roll back and forth, where you can lean back. I've never had that. I just have 4 tables and chairs, 18 chairs, all the same. Anyway, he understood that I did it because I liked folk music, and I met everyone, and I presented everyone, but yet I would never move back from the back of my store, and people would eternally walk in and walk around and walk out, wondering what the hell I was doing with folk music in America, or Swedish folk music in Sweden. Thanks, Bob. I was the first to praise you and the very first to criticize you, and you never got angry at me. You're right and I'm right. So you see, I'm trying to make deals with the capitalist world. We live in the same world. Soon I'll write our story. So I'm putting in these little jabs, saying, watch out, coming through.
One of the books that Dave Van Ronk was involved in, I was wondering if you were familiar with it. Well, I know you're familiar with it. Was the Boss's Songbook, which was a parody book in a sense. Did you sell that, or do you know anything about how he came to put that together?
I sold, it was like a quarter or something like that. I think in the end it was 75 cents. I sold literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I forgot this friend that actually published it.
Yeah, I'm losing the other name. It was started with an E, I think, his last name, Ellington, Endicott.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It's Ellington.
Element, or I don't know.
It could be Ellington or Element, something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I knew the guy very well, but I knew Dave. Dave introduced the song into my songbook, into my store, and there were songs in there. Well, I tell you what. Anyway, the guy got tired of reprinting it because I was the only one buying it. Basically, I buy 50 or 100 copies at a time. I pay him $15 and sell it for $25.
What was the focus of that book? I understood it was there was something in there I read.
Do you have
about.
a copy of the book?
I don't, which I want to find.
He
one.
keeps
It's
promising me, because
Dave?
every time I see him, the main reason I see Dave is to get a copy of the book. And he says he can't find it.
I'm going to write him and ask him if he'll sell me one. But he
It's
might
not
be
even
able
a
to
question
find
of
it.
selling it. It's a matter of he has
Yeah.
everything in paper folders in the drawer, and he has to find it. Anyway, I think Dick Ellington, the
Dick
guy's name
Ellington
was.
was his name.
Well, I didn't know well. So I sold hundreds and hundreds of copies of it. But there was one song in the book about PC. They gave him his
Ballad of a Party Folk
headquarters. This is for not 49. Way behind law, whatever it is. Which I haven't sung the song in a long time. That have these real cockamamie guitar chord positions, and these. This guy living in Maine now. I can't think of his name. He wrote some of the songs. Well, anyway. Dick Ellington gets tired of it, and he said, "Izzy, if you want to publish it, you can publish it. I don't give a shit. I'm not interested anymore. He's a businessman or something." I couldn't do it. Now, you're supposed to ask me why I couldn't do it.
Why couldn't you do it? I thought you were going to tell me.
Because I couldn't publish it because there was that song attack the singer.
Oh.
They gave it to one of the party headquarters. This is not 37, it's 49.
Why did you hesitate on that? Just because of personal
I felt that
relationship?
Pete would be very hurt by that. I felt it was it could have been a just attack, but it was an unfair attack. And actually it's not unfair because he did all those things, and he did. I think he was one of the first to change it. At the invasion of Czechoslovakia, he didn't wait to the invasion of Hungary or whatever. But I just couldn't do it. But the rest of the book is a takeoff and put down on the phone he left. All these people like became commercial. So the book I was completely with it except that song. I just couldn't do it. I felt that people were in here. And Pete, once I needed money, what is a folk story now? I needed money to move from McDougal Street, which I couldn't take anymore. So here, I'm crazy. When the street really takes off and becomes commercial, but I can't take with all these people running down the street for buttons.
I was going to ask you, what did you mean you couldn't take it anymore? It was just too commercial, too busy, too
Yeah, but it was
hectic?
commercial when I came on. I went to that street, not to Bond Street or Veteran Street. I bought a second-hand bookshop for $1,000. I cashed in the only insurance policy I ever had. It's just the only savings I ever had. I moved into the store, and he's now a big bookseller in Boston. And as I said, it became the world center for music overnight. There was absolute need for it. And then, that was in 1963, I just, Mark Silver walked into the store, and I was considered very testy in those days. He would say something too much. I said, get the fuck out of here, leave me alone, get the fuck out of here, do something, leave me alone. And he said, yeah, but Izzy, I just wanted to tell you something. There's a store available, one story high, one on the second ground, first floor. I'll 6 days right there.
Okay, back on.
Okay, now, I'll ramble a little about Mo Ash before I go back to that particular story. Mo Ash dies, and I had this memorial thing, and I told you that Pete Seeger puts me on and cuts off Sis, which I thought was bad at the time. She was just going all around the earth. See what Pete did to me, see what Pete did to me. Or she see what Toshi did to me, see what Toshi did to me. And that'll be a whole topic we can discuss. It's like the royal family of the revolution. Only certain things can be said. So at this memorial meeting, everyone is saying nice things about Mo. And I said, nobody's telling the truth here. I said, God, well, I have the nerve to tell the truth. So he did it, I think, in a horrible way, the way it's the Pete Seeger tradition. You have all the people sitting on the stage. I'm sitting next to Ruth Rubin, and Stutz Turk was sitting next to me, and then Jimmy, somebody sitting there, and somebody else here, and someone else here. Now, my picture of that should be all these people coming from all different directions. I didn't have 1 minute to speak to Stutz Turkle because we're sitting on the stage, and you're supposed to now is he young and now is Stutz Turkle, and Stutz Turkle does something, and Tony Schwartz does his thing, plays an old recording, and some modern composer was recorded, played something. So Oscar Brandt was the only, he opened it up, and he didn't call Mo Ash a crook, but he said that Mo Ash had 3-4 sets of books, one for himself, one for the government, but there's no book for the artist because the artist was nobody. He told the story about coming in. He actually told a story about I think it was Siska Houston you mentioned, but it could be Siska Houston, but it also could be 50 other people probably happened too. Siska Houston was passing through New York City, so I decided to go up to Mo Ash to his office just to say hello. So I went up to his office to say hello, and he got a check for $50 from Mo. He had this, just a second, I go to the other room and check out the boy. I just assumed he was there to collect his royalties. Well, we got $50.
Yeah.
I mean, he complained that I didn't have records number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on my window. In other words, I was just an old folky, so I could put this in too. He's in Washington in a hotel, and some young girl, 13, 14, comes into his place and masturbates him in the hotel room. But her sister was there, so you got to be really dumb and stupid to do it in front of his sisters. So I don't know who told the parents. Then they send an arrest warrant or police him. So the guy is a true liberal in the sense, because if he was smart, he would say, I never did it. How can you prove it? Two sisters make up a story.
Sure.
So I'm guilty, I did it, but I'll never do it again or something like that. Then he got blasted and put away in jail. So that's just, and he had married somebody's. Okay, Mo Ash. So he's sitting there with Albert Einstein and Sholamash and this Russian geologist or whatever he was, who discovered the oil fields that made possible World War II. In other words, even wars are manipulations. I don't hit you until you can hit me back or something. And he tells this idea of making a mosaic of world's thoughts, ideas, music. It's a mosaic, the way you see it. All these pieces will be put together. And Albert Einstein says, very good ideas, Sonny, and you'll make money at it too. So when I heard that, I said, no, I can't do the interview anymore. But it's just no difference like selling bananas on the stand on Orchard Street. In other words, it's just selling culture is just like selling bananas. And I still have that feeling every once in a while that there's no difference in selling culture than in selling bananas. So Mo would be very proud that he can make deals with the big companies. So here he is putting out, I forgot the numbers, 2,600 records he put out in the end.
It's something like that, yeah.
It's something like that, plus a lot of tapes that never came out. He put out 2,600 records, so say the time I knew him was like, say 2,000, at least 2,000. And how we could keep that going, long corridors, and he could put out 50 at a time, even 20 at a time. Maybe he would print 300 sleeves. And so he was the only one that figured out a way of, in other words, his cost production scheme wasn't the same as Jack Holzman's cost production scheme.
Sure.
So Jack Holzman said, listen, we got administration and I'm traveling all around the world. That's what the records cost. You got to sell to 11,000. That was the number he said, 11,000. And Moash didn't have that idea. So Moash, I think the first big deal he made was with Scholastic magazines. No, he actually made it with some radio company before, which ended bust. Then he made this deal with Scholastic magazines, which was now, it's still around, Scholastic magazines. I remember in high school, every kid in the school had it, in junior high school. Is it as popular now as it was then?
I wouldn't know. I know it's still around. You can see it in pediatricians' offices, for instance.
So it's really still around.
Yeah.
So he made this deal with Scholastic, which means that now he can get through all the schools in the country, all the teachers, all the professional organizations who he's trying to reach. And then he very quickly finds that he's screwed, the way he was always screwed. Because in the end, they only wanted 50 records out of this whole mosaic, his life dream. And even as a young, can't take all his records in because there's no way I could put his records. It would be a whole wall and I would sell maybe those 50 records also. And then he really tried to become commercial with Burr Folkways. And he admitted to me he put on a woman singer from Canada. I don't remember her name now, but it's in my notebook somewhere. That he put her, I should have brought that notebook with me. It's like a major notebook where I write down very consciously what's happening. He put on a Canadian singer to compete with Joan Baez. So then he makes this deal with Burr Folkways, and he very rapidly finds out there's only 50 things they're interested in. So, and that falls through in garbage. Scholastic was a gentlemanly hustle this way. It's done in a nice Christian way. Burr Folkways is done in a modern Jewish, Italian, mafia, pushing way. That was cheap compared to Jack Holzman, about like clean product, so to speak, all the time. And that flopped. So that means there was no way for Moash in a growing commercial folk music climate to continue putting out, you can't put out Eskimo records or love songs from North African frogs or Jewish songs from Morocco. There's no way you can do it. Now, the quality of the records is another thing, because you had different groups of records, you had different prices, different professors running it. The quality, I think, is about as much as anyone else put out. Maybe 10% is really fabulous stuff. And I don't think anybody, Sam Charles is the one that brought that out for me. If you come up to 10%, that's anything you do is 10% is good, the rest is garbage. There's no way out of it. That's the cultural life of any nation or any country. 10% is great, the other stuff, but you can't do the 10% without the other 90%. It's part of a continuum. So he can never break out of that stranglehold of commercialism, although he was himself commercial. I remember being very bitter with them. I can no longer say which year it was. I said, well, what about Brownie McGee? Doesn't he have a right to live? I think that was a specific case. Because now I see Brownie McGee, the folkways he has, I feel like gagging with every day. Because I know how we felt about it. And he says, well, my problem is to live the way I live. Right? He has this big apartment in the Washington Square Village. And he's spending $30 for lunch, and he's going to these theater fairs, and he's going to this, and he's going to that. And it's Dave Van Ronks or anyone's name, Brownie McGee's problem to live as a musician. You understand?
Sure.
There's two different worlds.
Did he cheat the artists?
Did he cheat them?
Yeah.
Well, I'm with Harold Leventhal last year, and he starts telling me I should have a tape recorder through all the time. I see people, but people tell me things because they think I don't remember. They think it goes through my brain and just disappears. And he says that Woody Guthrie said, "Fuck Mo Ash," and Harold Leventhal was screaming the way he says that Woody Guthrie was screaming because he couldn't get $10 out of it or $5 out of it. I think I asked you the other day, you know who the largest earner now is royalties on Smithsonian Folkways?
Yeah.
Ella Jenkins. So that's something that you have to give Mo Ash credit for. He did the groundwork. He went into every school, he wrote to every school superintendency, he built the groundwork, which he's not getting credit for. You don't see anything but that sing out, the kids beat. I'm a kid singer, everyone's a kid singer suddenly, then everyone's a tale storyteller, and have these tale storytelling conferences, and I can't listen to that stuff. I fall asleep at it. But so you see, then I get these records from Fast Folk in New York City, and everything sounds exactly alike. This thing from PMN Complex sounds exactly alike. I told you, this guy sent me 5 hours of this program from Princeton, New Brunswick. Everything sounds exactly alike. And with this tremendous competition, with this tremendous idea of everyone singing their own songs, which I told you was what I feel killed Jack Elliott, that he's an interpreter. Let it be at that. And there's no room for the interpreter. You've got to write your own songs. And I was telling you yesterday, people telling me now in Sweden, I'm another 20 years behind America. I'm going through the same stage now. What do you do? I write my own songs. I said, just think, asking Birdie, what do you do? I write my own songs. So Mo Ash kept bravely to the end because he had this original image, and he kept that. But the living is their problem, and his living is his problem.
But did he pay them a fair royalty?
No, he paid him. He robbed them consistently. Because I came into the office once, and his son, Mike Ash, was writing out some royalty reports. Ella Jenkins, $23, Jack Elliott, $15. And Mo Ash comes into the office. I really had privy. I should have written down everything at the time. And Mo Ash comes in. You're killing me, Mike! The way he would say to me or anybody else. You're killing me! Take 25% off the royalties right away! You're killing me! You don't understand! Take 25% off! So I look at these figures, $50, 25, he's taking 20, Mike does this month, takes off. This thing, because, as I said, that philosophy is not going to be anywhere else except me telling you. This Goldsmith is not going to get that. Brownie, he has his problems as a singer, he has his problems as a Jewish intellectual in New York City. And I come up with this idea, I don't know if it's one of the tape yesterday when we were talking, I come up with this idea of putting out poetry records. And actually, I'm telling so many stories, I don't remember what I'm telling you now. I want to put out poetry. I put out a lot of poetry because basically, I've always been more interested in poetry than actually ugly again. I thought if you can't write the market.
Okay.
Okay, where are we up to? I'm sorry,
Well,
I'm really blasting you.
In your story, I want to kind of redirect a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Because we had gotten
Back to
into this through, we'd actually moved from a discussion of individual artists and their role on the scene back in the 50s, early 60s, and we segued from that into Mo Ash, which I actually wanted to discuss, but we did it just now instead of later. But going back to where we were.
Oh, with Mo Ash?
Yeah.
Okay, let me finish that now.
Sure.
So Mo Ash says, let's put out
The
poetry. And I couldn't accept that. Now, I made a tape, the only tape I've made like that in my life, which I found in my bay, in the store. I have about 50 tapes left from America. I had like 300 tapes. a tape where I talk to myself, like Kraft's last tape. And I listened to that tape. I say, I was nuts. Mo Ash was less of a crook than everybody else. He's surrounded by big crooks, but I don't have contact with the big crooks the way I have with Mo. So I take it out on Mo. All my feelings about Columbia Records. I'm not attacking Epic Records or 3M, Big this, Big 9, Big 12. I'm not attacking MPH. I'm not attacking but I'm hitting Mo Ash because I have direct contact with him for being a petty crook, compared to the others. And I'm amazed now that I could actually jump on Mo, but not jump on all the other people, because it was obviously more obvious when he was doing it, when the other people were doing it, because the other people were doing it through nice contracts, and you deduct 10% because of this, and then any record you put out, you put 2 free songs out on samplers, and you understand, and you're being robbed. And somebody told me last year, if I got any money on this Tim Buckley tape I have, that what you get is what you see. In other words, if I get $1,000 advance, I'll never get any more than $1,000. If I get $10,000 for it, I'll never get more than whatever you get is what you get. And the accountants make it that you never see it anymore. But in his case, it was completely visible. So I would hear stories like somebody sent a tape to Mo Ash. Well, it's a true story. The guy, I don't remember the guy's name anymore. He told me he sent the tape to Mo Ash from Canada, a demo tape.
Right.
He never hears from Mo. He's working at a record shop somewhere in Canada, 2 years later or 3 years later. Folks also from Canada buy so and so, and he can't believe it. There's a record. So a lot of people would make recordings for Mo because actually it was cheaper for them to buy the records from him than to put out the records themselves. That role is still being carried out today somewhat by Rounder and Flying Fishes. Seems to be specializing in people putting out the records through them, and they buy it. It's cheaper to buy it themselves, so they put out a record, promise to buy 500 copies. Because now the only way you can sell out-of-the-way singers that are not mainstream singers is by selling yourself at concerts. That process is now happening in Sweden now, because there's no record shop that sells Swedish artists or Swedish music. So they have to do what's called impulse. So that's the situation of the American singer. Like John Harold, whenever he goes somewhere, he's selling his tapes for $8. Everybody else is doing the same thing. Okay.
Let me ask you a question going back. You started the Folklore Center in '57. You were involved in you're a folkie yourself. It was a couple of years later that the Kingston Trio hit it big with Tom Dooley, and it got a lot of criticism. Did that have a visible impact on the scene in which you were living and working when it became a hit?
No, everybody was part of it.
Okay.
I mean, nobody fought it.
But did it have an impact?
I make some weird comments on it, sing out.
Did it bring more? Did suddenly more people start coming down to the village, to your store, looking for?
Oh yeah, well,
that music.
I probably sold it also.
Mm-hmm.
No, but the most records I was selling was Electra records. Then traditional records. I sold a lot of tradition. That started in the village with the Clancy brothers, and they would sell the traditional Irish stuff, and they had the first Odetta, but it actually wasn't the first Odetta. She has an album, Fantasy Records, which I think is even better. And so traditional records came in also around 58 to 59, and I sold all those records. And I used to go there with cash and buy the records.
But none of these sold. I don't know. I've read various figures on Tom Dooley: 2.5 million, 4 million copies.
Well, nothing
of a
came
single
near
song.
to that. But I don't remember anybody complaining. I don't remember Frank Warner complaining. And Frank Warner was caught up in this process. I think I told you yesterday that I wrote somewhere that Kenny Goldstein and I are the only heroes of folk music industry because we're the only ones that never copyrighted anything in our name.
Right.
So what you had to do at that time, which I think is still criminal, when I see a song by Leadbelly, it says with additional material collected, arranged, edited, copyright by Alan Lomax. You see him in those little magazines, I attack him.
Yes.
Said there was a fire in his house, but don't worry, there's still American tradition around because the collection wasn't destroyed. He's copyrighted about 7,000 songs, something like that. And he claimed that his father wrote Home on the Range, tried to get $4 million. But even though it's an old book from 1880, because he changed a word, and Tom Glazer would change on top of Old Smoky. And everybody was changing the words a little bit to get the copyright. So what happened was, I think Frank Warner's name is on the dually. I'm not sure, but the music publishers convinced Frank Warner that the version he sang was not the traditional version. Not the guy he learned it from, who he gets credit to on the record, but it was his unique individual contribution. And he went along with that. But I said, Izzy, you have to understand, everyone at that time would tell you. And I actually attacked Norman Kasdan for putting out this collection of songs. You know, he's a left winger from Old Chico, all these other like Camp Woodland. And he would always complain about these left wingers. They didn't wait till the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth chance to sell out. They did it at the very first chance. So I have all of these books. Burl Ives changing cleverly all the songs. So the philosophy behind that was that a folk that would come in, you know, she's a nice girl, one of the roving kind or something.
Uh-huh.
But Burl Ives or Norman Kasdan or whoever it was would change one or two words, or Alan Lomax. Like the folk song USA is Criminal. Every song in that book is copyrighted by Lomax. Kenny Goldstein would never have the nerve to do that, even if he might dream it, but he would never have the nerve to say, yeah, they collected, you know, battlerized, changed around. So somebody would pick up that version, record it, and then they would have a music expert to say, you took Burl Ives' version, you took Norman Kasdan. That's how people make a living. So there would be lawyers on both sides of that question. One who stole the songs, and one would come to my store and buy every single book I had of folk music. I can't think of his name right now. That would debunk all these claims. It became a lively industry. Very shortly after I opened my store, by 5960, there was an industry taking old songs, but not giving it back to the people the way they learned it, putting their personal imprint on the song, for copyright reasons, no other reasons.
Was it a surprise to you when the Kingston Trio suddenly had this national hit? God, I know that song was sung by Frank Prophet.
Yeah, but that song, I mean, not only that song, it actually wasn't anything new, because I think I told you I never went to a Weavers concert. I considered that totally commercial. They had sold like 1 million songs.
Sure, and that was a little earlier, 1950.
Yeah, but so there's no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, Pete Seeger's walking around with a fancy tie and fancy clothes, and he did all this shit. And he's telling Woody Guthrie to do the same, and he can't do the same. And Izzy on Woody, you haven't read this either.
Yeah.
So I write that. All artists, and nearly all artists. This is an article I wrote on Woody Guthrie, on a Swedish translation of Bound for Glory, which I think is far superior to Pete Seeger's. May he live forever. Pete Seeger's introduction, which makes him into a rosy-cheeked young guy walking around through America. And I tried to write about the way I felt much later. So I wrote this in '77. A new edition of the book came out in 1989 without my introduction, but retaining Pete Seeger's rosy-cheeked, apple-cheeked introduction, which I became very angry about. So I write, all artists, or nearly all artists, give in to the capitalist system to make a living. They change their writing styles, ideas, friends, political parties, homes. Bob Dylan, one of Woody's children, as they say in the USA, well, the only group he ever attacked, once he became known, was the group protecting the right of free speech for radicals in the USA, the Emergency Civil Liberties Union. He never attacked the Johnson or Nixon or anything at least. And I'm still the only person that mentions this, because if I say this, you got to support young people. I say, he's not young anymore. He's 40 years old. He's 50 years old now. He recently bought a home in Malibu Beach for $2 million to be closer to Hollywood, and young people everywhere still want to believe he's a revolutionary. Tom Paxton claimed when he got fame that he never was a protest singer. Quote, quote. Phil Oakes committed suicide rather than continue his 50% attempts to compromise, continue fighting the system, and continue fighting for personal fame and money. And he was tempted. Woody was, as all artists are. He didn't have to walk into Rockefeller Center's Rainbow Room to do an audition. But some radical friend or other, what do you think this radical friend or other is? Pete Seeger. Some radical friend or other. Now the thing about this thing is I write this, it's very strong. I forgot about it, and Pete sends it back to me. In other words, so Pete lets the other people do his work. In other words, I did a part of the job, so he reminds me. But some radical friend or other probably told him that it was a chance to reach a lot more people with his message. He saw the makeup and the false smiles and the force of money on the artist. You can see I write better than I talk. And he didn't leave, not yet. First he made up a song about the place and sung it on the spot. The artist hates to be alone and hungry and always grubbing. The artist wants to think he can affect people. It took an hour to go back to the streets and continue living without regular income, regular royalties, regular contracts, regularity, and a regular big house away from the problems of working class people. It was a conscious decision on his part. He had more choice than the worker, forced to find food for a family, who was then forced by circumstances to take credit for the company's store. In the end, the artist knows whether he or she wants or doesn't want all the extra money and extra possibilities for extra money. And that's what I'm saying is killing everybody. Woody must have faced that choice constantly, but he understood that as leaving the working class behind and he just couldn't do it. I'm not so sure it was his conscience, as I'm saying here, but he just couldn't do it. But I said also, like everybody else, he was tempted. He didn't go right away. He stayed there an hour. And he wanted a car, and I didn't even want a car, so I'm even ahead of Woody.
What impact did Dylan have when he arrived on the scene? Was he appreciated or immediately, or just another schmo?
He was just another schmo. In fact, the publishing company called me from England just a few weeks ago, and they told me they're doing a new edition of a book called Song and Dance Man by a guy named Gray. It's a very intellectual book. I don't have a copy of it. And they said, I said, well, here I am. I want to do an interview. We fly me down to London. I'm ready to go. I said, no, we don't want to interview with you. We just want some old photographs of Bob Dylan. Uh-huh. So I said, well, I gave him all the addresses I had. There's Dave Garr, there's Art Levy, Columbia, there's this Telegraph magazine just on Bob Dylan in London. But that's old hat. I said, wait a second. There was a photographer, Swedish photographer, came into my store in '61. And I said, this guy's great. You got to take photographs of him. And that's been unpublished. And the guy only took 2 photographs, a stingy Swede. And I called him up just before I left for this folk festival on the way here. And I called the guy. I'm glad he's still alive. I said, listen, do you remember the photograph you took of this guy, Bob Dylan, in my store? Yeah. So he came in. I should have brought it with me. It's in the spring of '61. The guy doesn't look sick. The guy looks healthy. The guy looks like he's had chicken soup the day before, his mother. He is clean. There's nothing disturbing about him or anything. Now, I told you, I thought he was great. I did a program, BAI called me. I did a program. I have the tape somewhere still. They said, Izzy, put on a program, whatever you want. So that was '61. So I did it with also an interesting story on Dylan. Bob Dylan was in it, Pete Seeger was in it, Sis Cunningham was in it, and a guy from a group with Happy Traum had a group. The World.
Oh, New World Singers.
New
Gil
World
Turner?
Gil Turner.
Uh-huh.
Gil Turner is on it. And a few other people, I don't remember them. And we did a half-hour program, and Dylan is out of tune and he sings terribly. Oh, he's really, maybe the first time he actually sang Blowing in the Wind.
But this is pre-recording contract?
Pre-recording and everything,
Okay.
and it's '61. And you can hear my voice, my great singing voice, blowing in the wind, and Pete Seeger trying to make his harmonies, to make it his thing. Pete Seeger is a schmuck, excuse the expression. Oh, Dylan, oh, you're really great. You must write 3 songs before breakfast, and after breakfast you write 10 songs. And
Where'd you first hear Dylan?
Wait. So
Okay.
I'll just finish this
Uh-huh.
tape. Now, it's like those two articles that he found, which I don't remember writing. A kid comes to my store in Stockholm a year or 2 years ago. They said, listen, Izzy, I want to play something for you. So he plays it. He says, I don't remember it. I have no idea. What is that? I recognize it's the kind of language I use, that it's me speaking, because it's the tone values are bad.
Okay, so somebody
Well,
comes
what was
into
the
your,
last thing I...
somebody comes into your store, a Swedish kid comes into your store a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, a couple of years ago, I says, Izzy, you remember this tape? Because they have a Dylan Society in Sweden, but they never come to me. I told you the ones yesterday, they know the dates.
Right.
They know exactly when I met him. And I get plagued by these things. I still get letters. Like, I'll get a letter from England. Dear Mr. Young, we know that the 9th of March, that Bob Dylan was in your store, and he said so-and-so to you. And then he was the 12th, he was in England. But we think he was in your store also on the 10th. Do you remember what he said to you, or what you said to him? Or things like that. But it got so, by 1963, I have a note in one of my notebooks. I met Bob Dylan on the street at 3 o'clock this morning, and he invited me to a party. And I write, maybe I should have gone. In other words, I missed something. Even I'm thinking I'm missing something. So, wait, where are we now? I'm going off. Dylan.
Well, we were talking about Dylan when you recording for you in BAI.
Oh, it was recording. So I don't remember it, but I can't disprove it. So I find out later that the program was so bad, even if I'm running it, that Pacifica BAI never ran it. So in other words, they're digging out all the shit from the program is so bad. I mean, you would laugh. It's like Camden County, some schmucky thing that happened at the time.
Well, now it's an important historical archive, but then it was just another piece of crap.
Well, that was rejected out of hand.
Right.
They called me up because he didn't work. And I said, you're right, it didn't work. And then I forgot about it. So there was no big storm about him. And I feel now that, all this was going on. The publicity stuff is going on. Nobody really knows that Al Grossman is really managing him at this time. Dave Ermonk's wife, Terry Thal, is managing him at the time, but nothing's happening either.
Or she thought she was.
Well, she thought she was.
Yeah.
I'd never gotten the whole story, because I didn't hear that story until 5 years later or something.
Okay.
It was very secretive. I never understood the mechanics of it. I had the feeling that Al Grossman let him run around loose at the time. Let him find his own way. So Al Grossman talks me into putting on a concert at Carnegie Chapter Hall. It's the small hall with 200 seats. But it's at Carnegie Hall.
Right.
And I do it gladly. And the arrangement is that we share half the profits. So if 50 people come, I lose a lot of money. I mean, for me, I like $100 and $200. And I actually gave him $10 and $20 because I thought. Now the thing is, I thought that was a terrible concert. John Cohen has the tape, because I thought he was trying to do a relaxed Jack Elliott number. And then Bob Dylan has the nerve. It's also one of those accounts here to tell me, well, Izzy, Jack Elliott's had his chances. He's never gotten anywhere. Or he would come and say, Carolyn has to recorded her album in October, and it's not come out yet. And I did my album in March. It's coming out before her album. So he's very interested in all of these things. He didn't give a shit about Phil Oakes or anything. And so I put on this concert, and I am really pissed off that only 50 people showed up. I talked to Alan Gibbs, why did you come to the concert? It's really cool for why did you come to the, I ask everyone, why did you come to the concert? So I'm saying is that at that time already at 61, in other words, I'm still around working 4 years, that people don't come unless you're famous. Now, I thought that concert was a disaster. John Cohen says it was pretty good. But by the time I played it, I had my program, my regular program, except these isolated things once in a while. From 67 to 73 when I left. 2 hours, the best sending time, 2 to 4 on every other Saturday. So once I played 4 songs from the tape, without telling anybody, and that's where all the books come, that they name which 4 songs he did at my concert in 61. But the fact is no one came, not even his girlfriend, not Al Grossman, not anybody. And later on, with the, when it's supposed to be on the Ed Sullivan show, I don't have it here, but I have it in my scrapbook or someplace. They took out the song John Birch Society,
yeah.
Talking Blues. Now it's interesting because the version I printed is not the same version as the book. There seems to be several versions of that. And I actually like the one that I have printed. It's more literary than the others. And so I got 6 or 8 people to come up to CBS, the old building. It's not where it is now. And I said, gee, Dylan is not here. John, whatever the guy's name, the guy under Al Grossman at the office wasn't there. Al Grossman wasn't there. Susie Rodol wasn't there. Bob Dylan wasn't there. None of the flunkies were there. It was just me and a couple of my friends who believed in free speech, et cetera, that it should be on the program. And I called Grossman's office. He doesn't return the call. I try to call Dylan. I don't know, something like that. I don't remember what, but I arrive at CBS, to ride to sing, just like 1960 earlier with the Washington Square riot. Right. And I come there and there's some uniformed officers on horses. There were maybe 3 or 4. As I remember it, I remember 8 or something, but I think it was 3 or 4 officers ready to hit us. I said, God, all I did was send this little thing to the paper, and people were afraid of Izzy Young coming to the village with maybe 6 or 7 people. Well, I might like to remember that there were 12 people that came, but the people that were supposed to be there weren't there. And I arrived there and I see these policemen. So I said, fuck it. So you know what I did with these 200 posters I printed on my cassette machine? I threw it out into the garbage can. I shouldn't have done that. Now I'd be selling it for $100 each, these things. Some guy came to my store about 10 years ago, a guy from this area. He offered me $100 for anything I had in my scrapbooks about Bob Dylan that he didn't have. I said, look, if you take out the 10 things on Bob Dylan I have in my scrapbooks, then the rest of the scrapbooks aren't worth anything. The dealers. So I just dumped it, and I really felt bad. That when it came down to the crunch, he didn't stand up. And then I talked to Dylan the next day or whatever it is, very shortly afterwards. And he said, look, Izzy, I don't have any power. I'm just a little singer. I'm trying to make a living, which I expand on later. And when I get big, I'll really get back at him. And I'm still waiting for to get back at him, because I told you the only people he ever attacked was the Emergency Civil Liberties Union.
Right. I read it.
When he got the Jefferson Award.
Right.
So I can't understand why he attacked them. I mean, he didn't attack, in other words, it's just the way he attacks this 19-year-old hotel worker. He can attack little people, but he doesn't attack big people.
What's your perception of why he broke through? Why did he shine where
He
Jack
wrote,
Elliott?
I actually have that explained somewhere here,
Okay.
that he